Concern with Christian, or is that just still being careful with him and his workload?
No, we're just bringing them along.
Same question for Kyle in the shoulder.
Well, he had to because of the game. So we just following protocol. We're doing what we have to do.
I'm sorry, just to follow, you have to put him on the injury report because of the game?
Yeah, if a guy has something that happens in the game, you have to put
Got
the next day. So we're just
He
doing.
hadn't missed any of the reps.
No,
he needs.
he didn't miss anything. Didn't miss anything in the game, but we're just following the rules.
Ron, now you have Christian Miller back in practice last week, this week, he continuing to progress and come along.
He is. He's done a nice job with everything, and we'll see again how he is come Saturday.
Talking to Mario, how tough is it for a player? I know you have to address stuff like when your brother passed. How tough is that to stand up and talk about that when it's still fresh?
It's very hard. It's very difficult because the emotions are, like you said, very fresh, very raw. I think and each guy's going to handle it individually. I can just speak from my experience. It's a difficult thing, but the hard part is that for me personally, feeling like I had to go on, there's a little bit of guilt as far as I was concerned.
Not being able to process it more fully, you mean?
Yes. I had 24 hours, and it's a difficult thing when you're limited in your time and you really don't have that opportunity. And I'm just grateful that we have some young guys have had opportunities to be with their families, spend their time, and I really appreciate the way our players handled it in terms of welcoming them back and being there for their teammates.
How do you measure when somebody's ready to get back on the field from your perspective? I mean, I suppose you have to monitor that just like you would an injury almost, wouldn't you?
Well, for the most part, you visit with the player and talk with the player, and you go from there. And each guy, like I said, is different. Each guy handles things differently.
He told us, Ron, that he's not going to say he's good because he's not there yet, but he's fair. And have you seen him, start to look a little bit like the old Mario yet?
Yes, gradually, and he's probably gave you guys a fair description of how he feels.
Ron, you mentioned that it would be likely talking to the team counselor and going forward. I don't know how common that is around the NFL, the teams have that person on staff, but having a place for players to kind of have their mental health checked on is, how vital is that?
I think it's very important. I really do, and I gave you guys the example. We had a situation last year where that happened, and based on what happened, what the players saw, we felt that it would be a good thing for them to visit with her, and Tisha was terrific. She made her recommendations. We followed her recommendations, and both guys came out pretty good. So, we're just very fortunate. Something that Mr. Tepper felt very strongly about. He feels that it's important. We make the kind of investment in these young men that we've got to make sure we have all the resources available to them, and that's probably one of the biggest things that we have going for us right now as far as their mental health is concerned.
Is it almost, is Tish almost as vital as an RV in this case?
Well, yes, for her field, for what she does, yes. For dealing with the players' emotions and their mental health, yes. I think it's important that these players do have somebody. These are young men that are in different situations than they're used to, and I think again this is just something. The more we learn about how to help these guys, I think the more we'll be able to do for them.
I think maybe Jordan touched on this maybe last week or earlier this week, but Dennis Daly, I don't know if surprise is the right word, but to come in a 6-rounder as a rookie to make the impact he's making, what is the right word?
Well, it's one of those things that we felt pretty good about who he is. That's why we drafted him. I thought our scouts did a nice job of getting him on the board. I thought Marty, bringing him to our attention was important. And then we sent, Travell Wharton to go work him out. And Travell came back with a really good report as well. So, based on what the scouts saw, Marty saw, and we saw, we felt good that, here's a young man that could come in and help us. He was tested when he was at South Carolina. and he played very well. I mean, here's a guy who played in the SEC, which is very, very, very good football. And so we knew he had an opportunity. We knew he had a chance. We knew he could be somebody that could help us. I liked the way that he got a lot of work during OTA's minicamp and training camp. I think that the things that we do with our young guys, giving them opportunities to work with the ones and the twos, I think that's important. And we've done it. We've done it since I've been here, and it's been something. It's been a valuable tool in terms of the development of our young players. Are we surprised? Well, I don't know if surprised is the right word. But we're very pleased that he is. That's for darn sure. And he's just a young man that just seems to grow and learn and get better every day with practice and every time he gets on the football field.
The offensive line as a whole leads the league in fewest holding penalties. Is that, with all the shuffling that's happened, I mean, is that technique, is that coaching, is that, what do you?
I think it's a combination of a whole bunch of things. I think first of all, it's got a lot to do with the young man, who he is, the fact that they all work hard, and then coaching comes right into play, because I think, Coach Matsko and Travell have a very high standard in what's expected of them, the way they're taught, and then I think a lot of it has to do with the play calling, of trying to put our guys in the right kind of positions to have success. It's one of the things that I talk about after every game is that we want to make sure we're putting these guys in position to have success. So I think play calling has a lot to do with it. And then, I will say this too, with some of the guys we have back there, Kyle has the ability to make people right. Christian can make a lot of guys right. And then, so when you have guys like that back there as well, I think that's the combination.
And a lot of times with those flags, they're drive killers, and a lot of times they'll neutralize
Right.
big plays or whatever. So to not have had to deal with that as much as other teams.
Well, we had a few of them, we had one against San Francisco, which was off of a very big run. We had one off of a just a little simple dump pass on Sunday that had to come back, and it's unfortunate because they are drive killers. So again, it's really about making sure we're teaching these guys proper technique, making sure that we're putting them in position to succeed.
Ron, how rare is it to face a quarterback that can extend plays but also do it behind the line of scrimmage so that he can hit big plays down?
It's interesting because that's what you kind of see with a lot of these guys now. And Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best guys that has been doing it for a very long time. Now you see a young man like Patrick Mahomes coming in, and you see his value of stretching plays out and really giving guys opportunities to get downfield. That's why you have to have a disciplined rush. That's why you've got to make sure you keep the guy in the pocket, because that's one of his strengths. And what's crazy about it too, he does it inside the pocket as well. He'll take a nice 7-step drop and be about 10 yards deep, and then all of a sudden he'll hitch step up into the pocket and buy time that way as well. So it's not necessarily just him getting out of the pocket, but just the fact that he's willing to hold the ball. I think I saw a stat where he holds on the ball longer than any other quarterback in the league. So that's what he does.
Ron, with that in mind, how does that sort of go into your decision-making on when to bring extra rush?
Well, that's a big part of what you've got to figure out. As you look at situational football, one thing that always helps is if you can get him in third and long situations. You've got to be good on first and second down to put him in that type of situation, and then you've got to go from there.
Ron, when you were at Chicago and warm weather teams were going up there when it was going to be frigid, did you guys always feel like you had an advantage?
Yeah, you did, until Joe Montana showed up. And advantage went out the door. It was the '88 season. We played in the NFC Championship game, something -4 or 5 or whatever, and 2 threw 4 touchdown passes. So it's a myth.
How do you prepare your team for that? I mean, you can prepare for wetness, but I don't know if you can prepare for coldness.
No, you really can't. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing you try to remind the guys that they got to play in it as well. They've got to play. They're not practicing in it. They have an indoor facility, so I imagine they're using that right now. So I just think it's a mentality. You get up there and it's cold. So what? That's you've got to approach it that way.
Joey Sly's recent misses, how does that and the cold weather impact your decision making in Green Bay?
Well, it's not necessarily going to be about whether he's had a few misses. It's really going to be about whether or not we feel good about the distance more so than anything else. The wind will play a factor if there is wind. And just, what'll happen is he'll go out during warm-ups and pregame and kick the ball. Chase will come to me with that number. at halftime, coming out of halftime, he'll do the same thing, and Chase will come to me with that number. I'm not, those things happen. And sometimes there's reasons for them. When you break them down, you look at some of the things that happen. He sometimes sped up, and sometimes he slowed down, just depending on which one it was. But those are what things that happen. He is a first-year kicker for the most part in the NFL. He's going to go through some growing pains. We made the decision to live with it. Once we put Graham on IR, we said this is the guy, we got to stick with him because he's a young kicker. If you start getting rid of young kickers who've had some success, they never get a chance to develop. And that's the thing, that you're sitting there looking at a kid like Joey who's got a tremendous leg, who's been pretty good for us to I think, push the panic button. Now it's a little too early. So, we're going to try and show as much confidence in him as we can and continue to let him kick.
Ron, on Graham, I guess he recently had that knee done, the
Okay.
surgery. You had any updates from him or had a chance to talk to him?
I saw him this past weekend. He looked good. He's in good spirits. So we'll see how it all goes. I mean, I can't tell you anything other than that, Joe, just that he did do the surgery. You're right.
Didn't James will practice this week?
Yes, I am. Again, when you watch the guys go through their walkthrough and installation periods, you watch some of the movement, that they're getting on the sideline with the trainers. I'm confident, and we'll see tomorrow. I mean, again, it'd be real important to see how he is tomorrow, but then obviously we got to see how he feels Saturday if he has a good work day tomorrow.
Ron, you mentioned yesterday, Vernon, you wanted to see how he moved out there today. What did you make of that?
I thought he moved well. He's still going through his stuff with the trainers, and again, it's the same thing for him. We'll see how he moves around tomorrow once we get on the practice field.
Has Wes already started the process
Yes.
of getting up to speed with the new scheme
Yes.
and everything? Okay.
Yes, he got a number of reps today. We played him at the different positions that he's accustomed to. For him, it's really not that big a transition. Part of it is this is some of the stuff he played in when he was in college as well, so he understands the odd front stuff.
So much focus from the Packers on Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Jones is having a heck of a season up there too. What do you see from him and the rest of that running back group in how they run the ball and also catch the ball out of the backfield?
Well, you see a versatile group for the most part. He's having a good year. I think, they probably knew what they had in him. And when Devontae Adams went down, you started to see him assume some of those roles. Early in the year, you saw them run the jet sweep, and they were handing it to Devontae. Then they go in and they go with two running backs in the backfield, take one of them, split out Jones, bring him across in zip motion, and then hand him the ball. So those were the things that they were doing with Devontae before, Devontae got hurt. And I think they found an answer as far as, hey, if something happens, we can use this guy. So they've given themselves another weapon. Aaron's done a really nice job. And then he's very dangerous as a receiver. They split him out against Kansas City, saw that they had man coverage, him matched up with a linebacker, and threw a 9 route to him. Then they bring him back in and throw him a screen. So he's a very dynamic player, very versatile. Very similar to what we do with Christian. He runs very well between the tackles. He's not a big guy, but because of that, he's got tremendous quickness, and he makes cuts, and you really don't see him absorb a lot of big hits.
Your defense has been really good against running backs that catch the ball out of the backfield. Is that keeping everything in front of you, tackling, is that kind of the mark of your defense?
Well, that was one of the things we talked about as far as our guys are concerned, the way we play our defense, is that we do want to keep everything in front of us and try to prevent the plays up over the top. One of the big disappointments, obviously, is what happened in San Francisco more so than anything else, and that's just being gap sound. I think that's probably the biggest reason we've had a lot of success is we've been gap sound, and when we're not, it shows. I mean, it's an accountability defense, and when you play gap defense, if you're getting beat, somebody's not where they're supposed to be.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.